Why is it some of the conservative white sectors act like reparations are a sticky issue? I don't get this. I mean, let's deal with it head on. Let's deal with the reality of it. I mean, reparations are. What are they for again? It's not for specifically being black, right? Reparations were for slavery. Reparations were for the descendants of slaves. Well, that's not going to be specifically to black people now, is it? The descendants of slaves, majority of them aren't black. In America, the majority are actually white. So, to me, I don't get why people act like it's such a sticky subject or something they want to kind of like jump all over as if it's like something against white people and it's for black people, when in reality it would be actually more for a lot of white American people. So, I mean, like, you could use it to divide white from black like that. Because if you understand white Americans and the DNA of white Americans, majority of them are the descendants of slaves. The majority are the descendants of slaves that have basically history back in America that far. And also, the majority aren't descendants of slave owners because the ones who are immigrants obviously don't have ancestors all the way back to that point. And 1/3 of white Americans have African ancestry above 2%. So, I mean, like, there's quite a few that have it below that percentage. And of those people who have African ancestry, majority of them are descendants of slaves. So it's like, I don't get what you mean by saying that this would be in favor of black people and against white people. It would actually be in favor of white people. There's more black Americans who, on a percentage basis, are the descendants of slave owners because Black Americans, if you look at the DNA composition of Black Americans, generally they are a combination of Black Africans who were enslaved and white slave owners. Now, if you look at the percentage of white ancestry in a Black American, it's quite a big chunk, honestly. It's like 1/2 of the paternal lineage of Black Americans is white slave owner descent, like ancestry. So, it's like, why are you trying to act like they would be the main ones receiving reparations for slavery when they're literally the descendants of slave owners themselves? And, white Americans, good chunk of them, more white Americans are descendants of slaves than black Americans, because 1/3 of the white American population is over 20%, and that's just counting the people over 2% African ancestry. So it's safe to say that if we were talking about reparations, it would benefit white Americans, and a lot of black Americans would have to be compensating, I guess, white Americans for um, slavery. Honestly, let's be honest here. A lot of black Americans, not most, but there is a good percentage. There are some black Americans who are immigrants. They descend from Caribbean Americans. Obviously, that's got nothing to do with America. And also, then there's also black Americans who are descendants of Africans. And we all know about that whole situation. I mean, like, black Africans are actually the culprits of slavery. And their descendants would only be basically the descendants of those who are the culprits of slavery. So, I mean, like, even in that sense, like I said, it would be more black people who would have to, I guess, pay for the descendants of slaves. I just feel like this whole thing with the reparation situation is we make it into race when it's not even really about race at this point in life. It's been over 160 years almost. And since it's been such a long time, those people who were slaves have obviously gone and died, but their families obviously aren't all going to be black, and the majority of them aren't black. So I kind of find it just so weird that people would try and act like this would be a black versus white issue. And yes, that's how you're supposed to sensationalize it, to distract people, to divide people. Yes, but in reality, is that true? No. It's just a smokescreen at the end of the day. Because if we were really dealing with reparations, well, then the majority of people who would receive them would be white, not black. So, obviously, I mean, the whole reparations argument to divide black from white people, black Americans from white American people, it's basically a situation where people are just trying to create an agenda, and that agenda is black Americans versus white Americans to make Americans weaker because no one wants the American identity to be unified, because when we're unified, we're stronger. So the goal with reparations is to bring a fake narrative to divide black Americans from white Americans and not actually deal with the truth of the situation. If you want to give reparations to the descendants of slaves, you're going to have to actually give it to mostly white people. So, like I said, this isn't a black issue. So, that's all I have to say. I feel like both sides kind of handle this wrong. Of course, the left handles this wrong because the left side is trying to sensationalize black Americans' divide from white Americans, basically, to create rift, to create chaos, to create distraction, to create weakness in the American identity. But the problem is not just that. I understand they're trying to basically cause issues. So I guess you could say I don't like how they're handling it, but I understand that's their agenda and that's what they want to do on the left side. The right side is a problem because, to me, this is the problem. They tend to seem to have a situation where, like I said, it's almost like it's a touchy subject and they want to get past it, kind of like thing. When it's like, deal with it head on. It's not an issue of black versus white. It's not an issue of trying to make white Americans feel guilty for slavery. If we're really dealing with the truth of the situation, you'd understand that, no, this isn't going to be a black versus white issue in this present day because the majority of descendants of slaves in this day and age aren't even black. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Comment down below and have a great day. Bye, guys.